This is Lightning Power Lunch with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli on Lightning Radio.
That's through 81 games. And we've put ourselves in a position to vie for a Stanley Cup. You know, there's 32 teams. There's only 16 left. We're one of the 16. That's what we wanted to do. And I think, you know, every year we get looked at as, okay, you know, their time's over. And every year these guys come back and, you know, prove they can do it. So it's been amazing to be a part of for over a decade. And hopefully, you know, this group wants to make many more memories, you know, that we have memories ahead of us to make. And so, you know, excited to see what we can do in this playoffs.
Are we there yet? Are we there
Almost.
yet? Are we there yet, partner? The last game of the regular season. And it means nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that happens, but let's call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
This game means absolutely nothing.
And that's true for every other game that's being played in the NHL today, because Columbus got eliminated last night. Congratulations to Montreal. That's a great story. Congrats to Marty St. Louis.
I wanted to see Columbus.
You wanted to see Columbus.
I wanted to see Columbus. That would have been a great story, too.
It would have been
You
a
know?
great story. I think Dean Evason's going to get votes for Coach of the Year, as we talked about on yesterday's show,
Yeah.
as will Marty St. Louis. There is always
That's fair.
wide range of viable candidates
Yep.
to get votes that award. And as we've talked about, you know, the broadcasters vote on the Coach of the Year, the Jack Adams Award, and we only get 3. But Spencer Carberry is going to be on just about everyone's ballot.
He'll probably
I
win.
think.
And like we talked about that. And,
Yeah.
and that's fine. But
That
a lot
is
of good
fine.
coaches did well, including
Yeah.
John Cooper,
Including John Cooper.
which we discussed.
Right.
Rangers had
Peter
some problems.
Laviolette, not so much. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of chatter that when this season ends, he's going to be dismissed soon after. We'll see.
What do you make of that?
There's always the fallout when a team misses the playoffs, but for a team like the Rangers to miss the playoffs after winning the President's Trophy last year, there was some other controversial news that broke today.
Yeah.
Katie Strang with The Athletic had an article, which I saw the headline. I haven't read it yet. Panarin was involved with some stuff that he shouldn't have been involved with and reached a settlement, as did MSG with an employee. So, I mean, it's just like the hits keep on coming.
Well,
for the
did you see
Rangers.
the Calvin DeHaan story?
That he was bitter about?
Apparently he
being
thought he was
scratched?
off. Well, I think he was off record, but then he came and, you know, mentioned some things publicly to some reporters, and that got
Yeah.
back, and that he had to apologize.
It's
You
been
know,
a tough
just-
year.
yeah.
It's been a tough year for the Rangers, but it is always great to
Yes.
hear Sam Rosen call games. Sam graciously joining us in advance of his final broadcast, and there he is, right on
There he
cue,
is.
branding appropriately so. I don't know how old that hat is, Sam, for our viewers, but
That's my private stock.
well, you will keep the hat long after you have left the booth. But first of all, Sam, congratulations. I missed you the last time the Lightning were in New York, but I wanted to express my congratulations and best wishes to you and your family as you embark on this next chapter. I guess I'm just wondering, like, why did you decide that this was going to be the final year? Take us back to when you made that choice and why you made that choice.
Well, I think last May, it's a little short of a year ago, I had a little bit of an episode, health episode, nothing serious, and everything checked out fine, but I had to spend a night in the hospital getting all kinds of tests, and things checked out fine. And the rest of the summer went on as normal. I finished up calling the Rangers-Panthers series on radio. And I think as the next season approached, discussion of my family was just about overall approach to how long I wanted to continue doing it. And we looked at it from all angles. If it was just the games, Dave, as you know, the games are great. When they drop the puck, every game is exciting to me. If it's 5-1 in the third or it's 2-2 in overtime, the games are great. The players are great. It's the surrounding things that go on. It's what, the business has changed, the travel, even though we still, Joe Michelini and I still travel with the team, things have changed as far as hotels are concerned. And it drags some of it down, and it the time just seems to be right. And we thought about it again, that I'll bring up that health issue, which was minor at the time. And I thought about being in a hotel in Vancouver, and what if something happened and I'm stuck in a hospital on the road? And I don't want to ever face that. The other part is, professionally, I wanted to go out, and I've always told this to my sons, my grandkids. If you hear me or sense that I'm dropping off, that I'm not doing the job, calling the games as well as I had been, you got to tell me, because that's the time to leave. And it hasn't happened this way. I'm not hanging on. I've had a great season, and it's the way to go out. The reception has been great, better than I expected. But I think all those factors came into play when I made the decision that this would be it. And this way I have my health. My wife and I can spend time playing mediocre golf, traveling, and we'll have a good time with our grandkids as well. And that's the important thing.
Sam, I'm wondering, you have, I'm sure, some time to reflect a little bit, and the best moments you've had, and it's probably not just, a lot of wins and cups, but probably the people that you came across, right? And friendships that you made with players, coaches, and broadcasters.
Very much so, Greg. I think one of the things that I'll miss the most is the relationship with players. And I think what's great about our sport and about my being around as long as I have is that I've gotten to know these players as people. When I started out, there was less of an age difference, obviously, and the players that I met at the time, Ron Greshner, the Maloneys, John Van Beesbrook, these are people that are still my friends. And as you go on, now the age differential, I'm the sage man in the locker room, able to give advice, but I still love the players who come in. They all have stories. I've tried to encourage the rookies this season about. Hold on, just want to kill that phone call. I've encouraged the rookies to really push to maximize their talents, and I think that's something that they've listened to. Whether they do it or not, I can only hope. But those are the things that I really enjoy, and I'll miss the stories of how an 18 or 19-year-old kid from Finland comes to America and is a player in the National Hockey League, and a Russian kid who barely speaks English comes and becomes a great player in the league. These are all things that I'll miss about being around the team and around the game.
Sam, we did an interview over Zoom during COVID. I remember we were all waiting for hockey to resume, and you joined. It was basically an iteration of this show, but we did a much different sort of chat. But one of the things we talked about is that we share the honor of working with Phil Esposito. John Oller's had a couple of years with Phil, but I think we've been his two most regular partners during his broadcasting career. You have had quite the list of partners, though, beyond Phil. You had John Davidson. You've had Joe Micheletti. How has that been for you to have? I mean, you've had different partners, but it's been very consistent, and you've had a partner for a number of years before that partner moved on.
Very lucky, to say the least, and very fortunate to work for a company, MSG Networks, under the MSG umbrella, that tries and has always set their goal to bring in the best people that they can. And when I took over in 1984 full time, Phil Esposito had been in the booth with Jim Gordon for a few years. Phil had succeeded the big whistle, Bill Chadwick, the late Bill Chadwick, who in his early days was one of the great NHL referees. And I took over with Phil, and we had 2 fun seasons. Phil, I don't have to tell you, Dave, he enjoys life. He wants to have fun, but he expresses himself without any filters. And but we had a running thing. Phil would not go to morning skates. Why, Phil? Well, I don't want to be a distraction. Okay, but you need to get to know the players. That's your job, Sam. We get to the game, and somebody makes a great play, somebody scores a great goal. Phil analyzes it and turns to me on the air and says, "Where'd this guy come from? Where'd they get this guy from?" So we'd have to go into a whole thing, and that was part of the doing the homework. And after 2 years, Phil became the GM of the New York Rangers, and that set him off on another course. Though he did say when he came in for my ceremony March here at the Garden, he probably would have enjoyed staying in the broadcast booth rather than going through all the headaches. But Phil has given so much to the league and the foundation of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And every time I walk to the arena from the hotels there and look around and see what's developed down there, and it started with Phil. Phil had his vision of what could be, and he got the financial backing, and people came in, and the Lightning were born. And look at what's happened in that entire area that's built up because of the Tampa Bay Lightning and the great success that they've had. And there's the statue outside of the arena for Phil. John Davidson set the standards, Greg and Dave. I mean, he was the third. He retired early because of injuries, back problems, knee problems, became the third man in the booth on the broadcast team. Really didn't like that. Went up to Canada. John Shannon, great producer, longtime member of the NHL and their TV arm, and still to this day continues on as one of the important people in hockey. John was JD's producer and on Hockey Night in Canada, and he honed JD's skills. So in 1986, when John came back, JD came back to New York. He was the premier analyst in all of hockey. And that followed. Any network that got the NHL package hired JD to be their analyst because he was the best, set the standards. I used to think I had a good work ethic. This guy exceeded me by leaps and bounds. He had satellite receivers from everywhere. He was watching games till the middle of the night. So I went out and got this big, huge satellite dish and put it on the roof of my house just so I could get games from all around the league, and I could talk to JD on the air about what was going on around the league. And then when it took me 20 years to get him a GM's job, I finally got him off to St. Louis in 2006. And Joe Micheletti, who would come in to be the Islanders analyst, slid over as part of MSG Network, and we've been together for 19 years. And Joe, in a similar fashion as JD, as prepared as you can get, knows the players, knows the coaches, knows the executives, and makes my job that much easier. It just has flowed along.
I'm wondering, Sam, you mentioned just the game changing a little bit, and I'm curious, what advice would you give to young broadcasters looking to break in to the NHL and to hockey? Because I know things change, but you talked about being prepared and making sure you know what's going on. But have things changed? I'm sure they have from today compared to 20, 30 years ago. What advice would you give to a younger person
Well,
coming
a
in?
great question, and I think about it often, and I try to pass along advice when I meet young broadcasters and people aspiring who are still in school and aspiring to get into the profession. Um, I think one of the things I tell them, aside from preparation and be prepared and know the rules and know the game, is don't be afraid to show your love of the game. It's great. We're
Yeah.
seeing night after night. You never know what's going to happen in a game. It's what I mentioned earlier. You could see the greatest play in a 5-1 game. Whatever it is, enjoy it, embrace it, and express it. And I think that's something that I've always tried to put into my broadcasts is let people know, let the fans know that I appreciate what I'm seeing on the ice. I'm seeing the best players in the world night after night, and I'm seeing this great sport of hockey. Fast, exciting, physical. It's got all the great elements of entertainment. Now we have the greatest players making moves and dipsy doodle and behind the back and the Michigan goal. And I mean, they've got everything going. And so don't be afraid to say how much you like that play or you love this player. It's okay to express your love for the game.
Last one for me, Sam. Personally, I'm a little disappointed the Rangers missed the playoffs simply because I wanted you to get a chance to do more games.
Thank you.
That emotion is probably dwarfed by how Ranger fans feel about this season. So just a question on the team this year. It is perplexing from the outside how a team can go from winning the President's Trophy to missing the playoffs. Can you kind of sum up where things went off the rails this year for New York?
Yeah, I think a couple of things happened, Dave. And I think it started with veteran players being moved out, and there was kind of a fracture in the locker room. Not that people were at each other, but Barclay Goodrow, who helped the Tampa Bay Lightning win 2 Stanley Cups, he was put on waivers and went to San Jose. That was a veteran guy who actually in our series against the Florida Panthers last year in the Eastern Conference Final may have been the best forward on the team. Played, as you know, hard as can be, physical, tough, and scored some goals in the playoffs, which during the season he didn't do. Was getting a lot of money. They were looking to save some money, and he was put on waivers and let go. The captain of the Rangers, Jacob Trouba, old school, hard, physical player, heart and soul of the team. They wanted to move him during the summer. Didn't happen for several reasons, but they did move him early in the season. And I think that caused issues in the locker room as well. And then it was put out there publicly that Chris Kreider was available for trade. That's a New York Rangers entire career. He's setting franchise records, been there 12, 13 years, and suddenly he's out there publicly that they're looking to move him. I think that was it wasn't handled as well as it could have been. If you want to trade player, JD used to always say, you can't fall in love with your players because you might have to make a deal that is worthwhile. But the way it was handled, I think, affected people in the locker room. So the team that started 12-4-1 then went 5-16. And in those 16 losses, they got no points. Never got to overtime in any of those games. 16 regulation losses. So they went from up to this great start straight down. it seemed like they were getting it back together after the Christmas break. They played a little better in January, but they could never get on a roll. And then there was the incorporation of rookies. There was a trade of Capo Caco. They gave up on him, brought in Will Borgen in the deal. Will Borgen was signed to a long-term contract, has played very well. So some of the guys they brought in were fine, but there are new guys being brought in to blend in with the team from outside. It was tough. And I don't think they ever got over that, the shakeup, the changes in the locker room, and I think it really affected them. The team has not won more than 2 games in a row since the middle of November. And, I'll give you an example. We team went out to Winnipeg, lost 2-1, played very well. Winnipeg, one of the best teams in the league. Okay, we go to Minnesota, win in overtime 3-2, go to Columbus, shut out Columbus 4-0, come back home. They've won 2 in a row. They're in the number 8 spot. They're in that final playoff spot, and then proceed to lose 3 games in a row at home. So that's the type of season it's been, and I think they never got over that hump and trying to make the transition in weaving in younger players. They've got talented players. They're going to have tough decisions in the offseason, but I think that had a lot to do with the failure this season.
Well, Sam, I know it's a busy day, I'm sure, for you. We appreciate you taking time to talk about your career and all the great things you've done here with our Lightning fans and audience. And best of luck, and appreciate all the great memories you gave us.
Thank you, Greg. It's a pleasure to come on, Dave. Being a friend and a colleague, it's a pleasure to be on with you, Dave, and the great job that you've done, not only in calling the Tampa Bay Lightning games, but in nursing Phil Esposito. That is a great job in itself.
It has been a joy and a privilege to work with him. We're like an old married couple now. My wife says that. So yes, but I'm glad you got him rolling in the early years, because he didn't forget clearly whatever you taught him. He still asks, where did they get this guy from, though? Thank you, Sam. We'll see you tonight.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
You got it. Sam Rosen.
What a gracious man.
Legend.
He went from one end of the spectrum where Phil was asking, where did they get this guy, to JD, he might have asked John Davidson, where did they get this guy? And John Davidson would be able to tell him.
That's a great line, for sure. You were saying that. Phil still does that today. Where did they get him, David? Where did he come from? Really? Which is great.
Yeah. Sometimes he asks me a question, I'm not sure, because he springs it on you, right?
Yeah, right.
Great broadcaster, and like he said, he's been, fortunate to be well received. First of all, in this business, I think it is true, longevity breeds likability, because people just get used to you as being kind of an extension of their experience following their team. But Sam has earned everything that he's gotten. He is one of the best in the business, and he hasn't only done hockey. Like he was one of the announcers for, I think, Fox. He did NFL, and I'm not quite sure when he stopped doing that. It might have been around COVID, but he has had a very full, rich career in more than just hockey.
Right.
But deserving. I mean, he won the Foster Hewitt Award a few years back, and he had his Hall of Fame shirt on if people were watching the video stream, in addition to his New York Rangers hat. And he'll be missed. But look, he felt it was the right time. I didn't know he had a health episode last year. And I remember talking with Rick Peckham, because Rick announced the 2019-2020 season was going to be his final season at the beginning of that year, kind of like Sam.
Yeah.
And Rick was 64, turning 65 that season. He's like, I'm ready. I'm ready to be able to do other things while I can still do them, basically. Yeah. And it kind of sounded like some of that was going on with Sam too. But to reiterate, he'll be missed.
Yeah. We should have Rick on, by the way.
Yeah, we should.
Why not? What the heck? I feel like he physically he looks good too, Rick.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like you could tell. And did you get the sense, Sam, too, like the traveling, the other stuff?
Yeah.
It kind of gets to you, I think, as you get a little older.
I mean,
And
look,
I get
we
that.
travel literally first class. I mean,
You
we
do.
do.
Yeah,
It's
you do.
like
Right.
it's like a bus with wings. Like the game ends, we go to the airport and we take off, right? But I can speak personally. I'm not 25 anymore. You roll in the wee hours of the morning, bouncing back the next day, doesn't happen immediately. Fortunately, I have you to keep me sharp because we're usually doing a power lunch show the next day. But I can understand that. Yeah. And New York, traffic in New York is not great. And you can, if for those of you watching the video stream, I'm actually in the press room at Madison Square Garden with big windows lining one side, and right outside behind me, because I set up in front of one of these windows, is Penn Station. So getting into Manhattan can be tricky, but MSG is located literally right next to Penn Station. So it makes travel in by train, if you want to go that route, if you can go that route, a little easier. But the advantage that the New York teams have, Philadelphia, Washington to an extent, like a lot of their travel is, we'll call it more manageable. I mean, it would be as if the Lightning had like 3 Florida Panthers around them instead of 1, where it's, a very short flight, very manageable. But, they still have to go to Winnipeg. They still have to go to Vancouver. They still have to go to San Jose. And it gets harder as you get older.
It happens.
Yeah.
So you might as well do it now, and we still can move around and want to do some other things. But it's when you have legends in the broadcasting space that call it quits, I think it's a sad day. You kind of reflect a little bit, and you think about the good memories.
And he also said something interesting. He wanted to go out while he was still on top of his broadcasting game, which I can understand and appreciate.
100%. So I'm sure that'll add. That might even be the story for the Rangers tonight, to be honest with you. I mean, what do they have really to play
Well, they're
for?
going to do the jerseys off the back. They had an optional skate this
Does anybody
morning,
want
so
their
it was-
jerseys off the back?
Well,
in New
I was
York?
actually asking some of the media here, like, what is the reception going to be like tonight? I'm like, well, we'll see, right? I think based on what Sam said, some of the anger from, he didn't say this way, I'm saying it this way, but he basically laid it kind of on some of the moves the management made really affected this team. And if the fans feel that way, they're not going to take it out as much on the players as they will management. But the players have to go out and perform, and they just haven't done it this year consistently enough.
So there is something to be said, and we can talk about this with regards to the Lightning, which has been fascinating to watch them be so competitive over the last decade, is that there are certain players who are quote-unquote glue players that it's tougher to replace them. And if you don't have a replacement, maybe your team does go down a bad way, a bad path. And he mentioned Goodrow and Trouba. Now, look, I understand the finances of things with the cap not really being elevated over the last handful of years. It will be in the next couple, of course. But even a team like the Rangers, you may have to be fiscally a little more responsible. And anytime you go to free agency, you're going to end up overpaying for a player. That's going to happen. And it's going to happen to a first-line player, and it's going to happen to a fourth-line player like a Barclay Goodrow. Good on him for getting paid. But if it's not working out, teams will look to shed that salary.
But according to Sam, so look, the Lightning fans know how Barclay Goodrow can play in a playoff series and how valuable he is. And it sounds like, in the series that knocked them out last year,
he was their best player.
He was their best forward at the very least. That's what Sam said. So, again, he got a 5-year deal after winning the second cup with the Lightning.
Right.
So he was through 3 years of that deal. He had 2 years left. The Rangers were like, we don't want to have this contract on our books, I guess. I mean, whatever the reason was. But I can understand why a guy who is that impactful within the room, and we talk about a warrior, right? Like Barclay Goodrow is that guy. He will
100%.
block the shot at the end of the game to save a game, no matter how much it hurts.
He'll score a big goal.
Will score a big goal. He'll win a big face-off. He'll play
win a big
tough
fight.
game.
He'll win a big fight.
Guys like that carry a lot of weight in the room. And it's one thing to move a player. It's another thing to put him on waivers.
Yeah.
And I could see how that wouldn't sit well with his teammates.
Yeah.
And then he got claimed, right?
Like, if you're going to move him in the offseason. Right? I mean, if you're like, what's the point? Like, and I didn't watch a lot of Rangers games this year, so when Goodrow was placed on waivers, I couldn't tell you what his game was like. But
he's not going to be a huge goal producer and point producer during the regular season, especially. But his game,
it couldn't have fallen off
is built
that much
for the playoffs too.
But you know that.
Like,
if you're the Rangers, you know that. So, the second part of his game is not only being tough on the ice; it's in the locker room, probably a glue guy. Mm-hmm. So why would you risk that happening and coming apart rather than just say, okay, maybe we want to move on from this contract, but maybe we do this after the season? I think that's a little more manageable. And then Trouba, I'm not sure what happened there. I mean, I really don't. You mentioned the dynamics.
Not like Sam said that his game, Sam didn't say that his game had dropped off. I mean, I had heard chatter that like they needed room to extend Shesterkin, and so they wanted to free up dollars. But I mean, the cap is going up next year.
Yeah.
So there must have been a reason why they decided to, and they decided it last summer. It wasn't like it just, happened a month into the season. They're like, we need to shake things up, and they actually had a good start to the year. It was that 5-16 stretch that really sunk the Rangers. I don't know. I like Jacob Trouba as a player. I mean, yes, he carries some controversy with him on some of his hits, but when he's on your team, you certainly like him. He's the captain of the team. By the way, I'm just looking up Goodrow's numbers from last year. He played 80 games during the regular season. He had 4 goals. In the playoffs, 16 games, 6 goals. He had more goals in the playoffs, 6, than he had during a full regular season, 4. So that kind of backs up our point. And you said, why don't they move him in the summer? I thought that this was the case. I just wanted to confirm it. They put him on waivers during the summer.
Yeah.
It was the middle of June. They put him on waivers, and the Sharks claimed him. So
I get that. I mean, those moves obviously backfired. And take a look at where they are right now, and maybe they had some guys. Underachieved too.
Maybe Will Borgen is going to work out really well for them. They got him in the trade with Seattle. I like JT Miller. I think he's going to help their team. JT Miller wants to be here in New York, where he started his career. There's no reason to believe that JT Miller won't play really, really well for the Rangers, but they have some chemistry issues or just good juju issues that they need to solve.
Sure.
Into next year. Anyway, who knows what we're going to see from the Rangers tonight. They do have some extra players, so I mean, they don't have to play all their regulars if they don't want to. They sat a few of their guys in their last game against Florida, not sitting Zibanejad or Trocheck or anyone like that, but I think Vakanainen didn't play. Braden Schneider, I think, is hurt, one of their young defensemen, so he didn't play in the last game. We'll see. Juuso Parson had been out of the lineup. They put him in for the Florida game. So we'll see what they decide to do as far as the lineup is concerned. The Lightning have no wriggle room, though, as far as their lineup. They had room to call up one player, and they called up Cam Atkinson in part because they needed to replace Chafee in the lineup because Chafee got hurt.
Right.
So I think the Lightning are going to go with the same lineup. Johansson was in the starter's net before I came on the air with you. I watched the Lightning skate. It was a full skate. Johansson in the starter's net. So Vasi is going to be done in the regular season unless for some reason he has to come into the game tonight, and he will rest up for game 1 of the playoffs, which is not going to start Saturday. We got the schedule for Saturday. We'll see when Lightning and Panthers begin their series. We'll probably get all the other series at some point today/tonight. And yeah, that's what the Lightning are going to go with. They ran the lines. Lines were exactly the same as how they've been, except Atkinson was on the line with Gergensons instead of Chafee.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see when the playoffs start because, the longer the Lightning have to wait, maybe that helps them get healthy. Of course, that may
longer
be the
it
same
helps
thing.
Matthew Tkachuk, too.
That's what it helps him, too. So,
Yeah.
there's that that give and take a little bit, but we'll see how it plays out. But I am curious what type of game we're going to see tonight, and is it going to be more of a preseason feel than what it should be? We talked about the Kucherovs and the points and how little they played last game, are we even going to see that go down a little bit more?
Yeah, I was looking. So Kucherov had a game or two where he left the game. So there was one game I think he got hurt and left. And there was another game where he got the game misconduct for hitting Matthew Tkachuk. Remember that game in Florida? So he didn't play a lot. But 15 minutes is definitely in the low end for him. For Point, I think he might have had one game where the Lightning were winning. It was one of those games where they scored 8. Might have been the home game against Colorado. They scored 8. Point was in the 15-minute range. He might have been a little bit lower. But that's the only time that you would have a Braden Point playing 15 minutes, assuming he's healthy and doesn't have to leave the game. It's when you have such a big lead that, you don't really need him to play as much. We may see another game like that a little bit. I mean, unless something really weird happens statistically, Ryan McDonough is going to finish with the highest plus-minus in his career. He comes in at plus 44, leading the NHL. And it will be the highest plus-minus recorded by a Lightning player. I believe Steve had that in the Daily Strike podcast. Am I right about that, Steve? Plus 44 sets a Lightning record, single-season record, for highest plus-minus.
Jared, come on.
Yes, Steve wrote. Steve was on top of that. I thought
he was.
I thought he had mentioned it during the Daily Strike. Plus 38 was the previous record. Yeah, he mentioned that. I think Cooch and McDonough had plus 38. Yeah. So I listened, Steve. I heard your show this morning.
It's a great show.
Great show.
People should listen.
Yes.
I don't know why they don't.
Well, I think they do. What do you mean more people should listen?
More people should listen to it. That's what I'm saying. We want to it's already in the thousands. Let's make it, tens of thousands. And that should
it's
be
a very digestible. More people should. Okay, that came from Steve. It's a very digestible 5-minute appetizer at the start of the day to fill you in on what's going on, both the night before if the Lightning played and what's happening that day. And by the way, congratulations to Syracuse.
Yeah,
rallied for an overtime win in Hershey, my old stomping grounds, and they just needed a point, but they got the extra point. Connor Sherry scored in overtime.
Connor Sherry.
So Syracuse is on track. It's not a done deal. They have 2 games left, but on track to finish 3rd in the division, which would take them out of that 4-5 best-of-3 matchup and put them in a best-of-5 against Rochester, which is going to finish 2nd. I feel like Syracuse and Rochester played a lot recently in the playoffs. It's a little bit like Lightning Panthers. I mean, they're close to each other. They meet in the playoffs. Usually the series are pretty competitive and emotional. So Rochester, the affiliate of Buffalo, though, Buffalo is going to miss the playoffs. It's possible that they may send some reinforcements down.
I'll say send Tage Thompson down.
Well, I don't think it's going to be him. but that Noah Ostlund, who came up, he was a first-round pick.
For sure.
I think he was the Rookie of the Month in March in the AHL. Rochester's probably looking at getting him.
Does every team make the playoffs in the AHL?
Oh, no. Well, I was just saying.
I know. I'm just joking.
Yeah. So top 5 in 3 of the divisions get in. And I think there are 7 or 8 teams. And then in that Western division, more get in because they have a bigger division. But 4 or 5 is almost like a play-in series. It's a best of 3. And then the survivor gets the first place team. So congratulations to Syracuse.
Hey, look.
For a while there, it looked like they might not make it. Who's done really well? I keep seeing his name pop up. I mean, Sherry's had a good year with Syracuse. Is Crozier. Crozier has been all over the score sheet for Syracuse during the stretch run. He had an overtime goal recently.
Is it safe to say that the Lightning have a NHL ready defenseman who could be playing top 4, top 6 minutes in Syracuse?
Crozier, yeah.
That's what I mean.
I think so.
I mean, think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. I mean, that's legitimate. And, we got to get through this year, obviously, but that is going to be an interesting storyline heading into next year. Because that guy, it feels like, has accomplished what he's needed to accomplish at Syracuse. And is he ready?
And he's had injury problems this year, but those are mostly in the first half of the year since he's been back and healthy. I mean, he's had a very good second half, and he's had a tremendous finish to the regular season.
He has.
So anyway, 2 games left in the regular season for Syracuse. That'll be this weekend, and then their series will probably start at some point next week.
We'll be all over it, giving updates and listening to the Daily Strike podcast with Steve Rosen.
Yeah.
Should we get some questions? They're coming
Yeah,
in.
let's do it.
Would you like to do that? Nick on X. My X factor is Gord. I'm most worried about the confidence boost the Panthers might have getting their injured players back all at once.
Well, Yanni is a little bit like Barclay Goodrow, right? Because they were line mates.
A little bit.
And I think that he's going to bring an element in a playoff series that the Lightning will welcome, for sure. I mean, he's playing right now with Point and Kucherov because they have Gensel on the Hagel-Sorelli line. I don't know if that's going to be how the Lightning set it up in a playoff series, but Yanni has been with Point and Kuch since Bjorkstrand's injury, and tonight's the final game of the regular season. He's slated to play with those guys, so maybe that is what they're going to look at doing. He had a great assist for the goal that Braden Point scored. Yeah. Backhand dish, kind of leading Point. He put the puck into space and Point skated it onto it.
He has to be an X factor.
What Yanni brings is beyond what he might be able to produce in terms of goals and assists.
He has to be. The Lightning went out and got 2 players at the deadline because they needed to address depth. And when you address that depth, you expect those guys to provide you what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Bjorkstrand, we started to see that.
Yeah.
Gord has the ability to do it. He really does. And is he going to be an X factor? You betcha. I think it's going to be interesting. Who does he play with?
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about.
Who does he play with? Like, I mean, he sounds like he's found a home and really can be a third wheel to playing on a line with Kucherov and Point. You can have him just go in there, forecheck, use your speed, finish when you can, but be responsible defensively. And maybe his play can feed off of those 2 players' partner in the sense that keeping it simple sometimes helps in the playoffs. And you have a player who you know is going to be meat and potatoes. Maybe that also can impact your line mates in a positive way.
Yeah.
You don't want Point and Kucherov losing their aggressiveness, but you also want to be smart in the playoffs. And, let's see if that happens. But I tend to agree with you, Nick. It's a good question.
As far as the Panther players that are hurt coming back, and really we're talking about Tkachuk.
Yeah.
And then Ekblad missing the first 2 games. We mentioned this. Look, I know that the Lightning might have been able to avoid seeing Toronto and Florida in the first round had they won the division. Ottawa's not going to be some kind of consolation, not a consolation prize, but you know what I mean? Like the benefit of finishing first. Ottawa is going to give Toronto a good series. I believe that. I may be proven wrong. That's what I believe. I think if the Lightning draw in Ottawa, or if the Lightning can get past Florida and Ottawa beats Toronto in that first round series, which would be an upset, I mean, it's not going to be some kind of easy second round series, whether it's the Lightning or the Panthers against Ottawa. Ottawa's a good team.
Right.
But what we floated last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, this notion that if you're going to see Florida, maybe the best time to see Florida is the first round because Tkachuk is coming back from a 2-month absence. Ekblad is coming back from missing 20 games due to suspension. They haven't really revved their engine to the level they're going to need to rev it. And we've had this discussion about, turning the light switch on. I think that you can elevate, but it's hard to elevate super high right away. It's more of a building to that level. At least that's what we saw from the Lightning when they've had kind of mezza regular seasons, but they had the pedigree to go deep in the playoffs. They kind of built up their game through the first round. So we'll see. But, I mean, it's going to require very high-level play from Tampa Bay to beat the Panthers. It's no small feat to knock off the defending champs, which I've also mentioned.
Hard to
so
do,
we'll see.
Tampa Bay on X says, would you say this Bolts team is better than the 2021-22 and 22-23 teams, given the stats, eye test, and just development of some players?
So the first year they got to the Stanley Cup final and lost to Colorado. The second year they went out in the first round. So, I mean, those were two very different years. In 21-22, I mean, they had Andre Palat still. They had Killorn. I mean, they had a different sort of team. By the next year, Palat was gone. He was in New Jersey. And they didn't have McDonough in 22-23 as well. And they did have him in 21-22. I don't know. I mean, I probably look more at last year. And look, last year the series against the Panthers, it didn't go long. It was a 5-game series, but the Lightning were in the 4 games the Lightning lost. They were in all 4 of them, but they didn't have enough. They were either down by a goal going into the third, or was it game 1 was tied? I think game 1 was tied going to the third, and Verhaeghe scored early in the third. Game 2, they might have been down going into the third. They tied it and then lost in overtime. And then Game 3, they were down by a goal at home going into the third, lost. And Game 4, they were down by a goal going into the third, and the Panthers pulled away with some empty netters late. But the games that they lost were close, but they didn't have enough. I think they are better equipped to kind of flip that balance this year. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen. You got to play the games. You need to try and stay healthy, which unfortunately the Lightning have hit the injury bug in the last week, but that holds true in a playoff series too. You got to try and stay healthy through the playoffs, and you need to get some breaks. Puck luck is a component. Big plays. Who's going to win the big play metric? Florida won the big play metric last year.
They did.
The year before, Toronto won the big play metric.
Mm-hmm.
2022, Lightning, Maple Leafs, the Lightning won the big play metric, particularly in Game 6 and 7. They made the big plays that were needed to get wins in those 2 games.
They did.
The next year, the Leafs, arguably the Leafs outplayed the Lightning in 2022, but the Lightning won the big play metric, won the series. 2023, you can make the argument the Lightning outplayed the Leafs, but the Leafs decisively won the big play metric. Overtime goals, tying goals. I mean, remember, O'Reilly scores a 6th attacker goal in Game 3. That's why they won the series. So, hard question to answer. Whoever asked that question.
Yeah, hard to compare. I think the Lightning, if everybody's healthy, I know that's a big if. I like this team more, but let's see how things go. I think their defense is better. And I think their goaltending is pretty elite. So you have to factor all that into, which I'm sure you are. And this from Stray Dog on YouTube. Mish, don't be getting any funny ideas. Lightning radio and highlights wouldn't be the same. No retiring for you.
Well, I didn't.
Nice.
I was like, where's Stray Dog going with this? Funny ideas.
He said,
no, I have no immediate plans.
You have too much fun.
I do have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun doing the games. I have a lot of fun doing the show. I write as well. Writing is not always as fun for me. I like writing when I finish it.
You do like writing.
Yeah, I do like
when you're
writing.
done.
I will say writing the novel was a lot more fun, actually, than sometimes writing my extra shift. Look, I mean, I know what I want to say, but I'm like, oh, the game is over. I got to go home and write this extra shift, which when I finish it, I'm like, okay, I'm glad I did that. But
that's for sure.
I'm sure a lot of people who write for a living feel that way sometimes. But yes, I very much enjoy so many aspects of what I do.
And you do it well, and it's a pleasure working with you, Mish. Desiree says, any word on Shafee? This was from yesterday. Is he okay? Also, why were we given double or extra penalty minutes the other night? Oh, Hagel and his feisty, spicy self.
Well, the extra minor went to Geeky because he intervened after Puljujarvi hit Shafee. We see that sometimes. They felt that he kind of initiated something after the initial hit, but the initial hit was worse than the retaliation. So that's why Puljujarvi got a match penalty. I haven't actually heard. Have they given a suspension out yet? I heard he was going to have a hearing, but clearly they were no rush to follow through on this because the Panthers have some time left. Hearing is today. Time left before the next game. He's going to get suspended. That would be my expectation. We'll see. Usually a playoff game, like one playoff game would be the equivalent of multiple regular season games because the playoff game is more valuable and important. But again, like if Puljujarvi did not get any suspension, would he be in the lineup in game one? It seems unlikely that he would be that high up on their depth chart. So hopefully Chafee's able to return, and that is why the Lightning got the extra minor.
That is true. Dave says, any word what's wrong with Bjorkstrand and if he has a realistic chance of making it back during the playoffs if the Lightning go far?
These are questions we don't have answers to. Sorry.
I
mean, week to week, that's all we know.
Al says, just a thought, the 1-8 playoff format will be revisited if Toronto gets upset in the first round by Ottawa. This year, there will be a slightly different look if the 1-8 format was used.
Would it involve Toronto and Ottawa, though? Washington would be getting the lowest seed if we went 1-8. And Toronto has the second most points. And Ottawa has the second fewest points of the playoff team. So I don't know how that would be different. I don't know. I'm kind of like, tell us where to go and I'll be there. To win a Stanley Cup, you're going to have to beat good teams.
Yeah.
Toronto would be New Jersey. They would play New Jersey? Is that what you're saying? Okay. So, yeah, I guess then that makes sense. Was it Al who had that?
Our good friend Al.
Yeah.
Chris on Facebook says, the comfort level playing Florida in the first round is we know we can win in Sunrise. We have not played well on the road this year and playing either Ottawa or Toronto. They have proven, not just this year, but also in recent years, to be very tough places for us to play.
Yeah, that's true. But I think all that kind of goes out the window in a playoff series. I know I've said that before. I mean, the Lightning had a terrific home record in 2022, 2023. Really the reason they, not the only reason, but one of the big reasons why they made the playoffs that year was they had a terrific home record. I mean, it was 21-22 that the top 8 were so far ahead of the bottom 8 in the East. 22-23 was closer. Maybe the Lightning, with a worse home record, still would have made the schedule, or still would have made the playoffs. But their home record was way better than their road record. They were under 500 on the road. And in that series against Toronto, they won 2 of 3 in Toronto.
Yeah.
They won Game 5 facing elimination on the road. So, I don't know.
Things change in the playoffs. Sometimes you throw away what the regular season means.
Yeah.
Especially winning on the road, winning on home ice. You can't hide away from lack of depth. That'll usually catch up with you in a 7-game series. But things like effort and maybe playing better than what the metrics indicate during the regular season come postseason, that does change. And the Lightning have had issues in those buildings.
They have.
The listener had. But that to me, I think the Lightning would be game and ready to go. Because you don't have to do it for 82 games.
Right.
And it's a small sample size.
The teams are on equal footing as far as the travel in a playoff series. Yeah. As opposed to one team being at home for a week. They've been home for 4 or 5 days, and the team they're seeing is coming in the middle of or at the end of a road trip, potentially. So, hey, I do want to mention, Steve gave us the green light to pass this along.
Yeah.
We are adding shows for the playoffs. So Power Lunch is going to go every day, unless the Lightning are playing in the afternoon.
Yeah.
In which case,
more content,
we
more
wouldn't
time.
be doing a show. Yeah. But yeah, you are on Monday to Friday still.
That is.
We are going to be. I will be. You'll all
be
7
doing Saturday,
days.
Sunday as
yeah.
well.
So we're going to have.
Man.
We're going to have. Someone is going to try and fill your very big shoes. Yeah. And sit in your very big seat.
By the way, I decided to wear the ring today, and it was noticed on social media.
Which ring is that?
I don't know.
You got 2 to choose from.
The gravy
right?
train. Gravy train.
Oh,
You're
okay.
the gravy train.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. Thomas says, over under 10 minutes for point lines tonight and 10 minutes for either Heads or McDonough.
Well, I think he's going to play more than 10 minutes.
Yeah. Mainly because you have to. It's going to be tough,
Yeah, and I think the defenseman will play over 10. But as we mentioned, the Lightning managed to keep every player under 20 minutes the other night.
That was impressive.
Yeah.
TB Sports Fan says you guys should fill out your post your playoff brackets. I don't like doing those, you know.
Yeah, there was a time when the Lightning weren't making the playoffs that I did a column kind of doing predictions for every round. But when the Lightning are in it, I kind of just focus on what's going on with the Lightning.
Yeah. Anthony says, from what I've heard, Florida had the most scoring chances off the rush in the President's Trophy season. When they changed their game, they dropped to the bottom. Series will be won and lost on the boards. Leafs also trying to do the same, but their forecheck isn't that good. Anthony got into some stats. He said, for example, the Leafs are 26th in offensive zone possession now. I think weak side D will need to cheat to a puck rims. Vasi will need to help them, and the third forward needs to play lower and be open. Forsling didn't give any room to Cooch last year. 86 and 21 need to play from our D zone out.
Well, I agree that the Panthers are a good team on the boards because they play a physical game, and part of their DNA is to win puck battles and be tough, like the conventional definition of tough.
Yeah.
But I maintain, like, the Panthers will still carry the puck in. I mean, Alexander Barkov will carry the puck in and set up his teammates. Reinhart will carry it in. Bennett will carry it in. Verhaeghe will carry it in. I think you have to be ready for everything that's coming at you. Egregious
right,
breakdowns are not going to fly against any opponent.
No.
But what the Lightning have done much better this year than last year was scoring chances against in front of their net. Far fewer this year than what they allowed last year. Now, how those chances evolve, like how they come about, I mean, they can come out in different ways. Sometimes it's off the rush, right? And there's a guy open in a dangerous spot because it's off the rush. Other times it's often offensive zone possession shift for the other team, and there's a breakdown, and somebody lost coverage.
That is fair. We should say there are 2 playoff games that have been announced already.
Yes, on Saturday.
Blues at Jets, Avs at the Stars. Did you see Jason Robertson maybe out?
No, I
Got hurt in
didn't
the
see
last
that.
game.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, that's
a big
awful.
blow.
Awful.
And how much did Colorado help themselves with their deadline acquisitions and Landeskog, which is, I can't even wrap my head around that. Meaning that, like, what an incredible story and accomplishment if he's able to come back and play at the level he's going to have to play at.
That's the question.
But I mean,
Right.
he had a brief stint in the AHL, but he has not played a game since Game 6 of the 22 final.
Was that a knee injury? Was it knee?
Well, clearly it was not something that he could recover from. I think he may have blocked a shot in that Game 6. I don't know if that was the first domino to fall, but if you're missing basically 3 years, it's not just one thing.
That's
it's got to be,
incredible.
it's got to be
incredible.
whatever the thing was. It was difficult for him to get back on the ice. Otherwise, he would have done it sooner.
I agree.
But I mean, they're getting him too.
Yeah.
In addition to the guys that they added, the Natchez, which was earlier, Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle. They made a lot of moves from the middle of the year on.
And maybe it worked.
Maybe it
We'll
worked.
see if it goes.
Dallas is going to be, I mean, that's kind of like this Lightning Florida series. Dallas and Colorado in the first round. That is a heavyweight
I might even
matchup.
watch that. And you know me on games. I might even watch that one. We'll see how it plays out. All right, so the game tonight is at 7.
Yes.
Which means I will be speaking to you closer to 7. We'll do our back and forth. And then tomorrow, what do we say we're doing tomorrow?
You and
We
me,
going live?
we'll have a show. But then this
Okay.
this playoff power lunch schedule will kick in this
Yes.
weekend.
Yes.
So we're going to start a consecutive days streak for me on,
like Cal
on
Ripken.
power lunch.
It'd be like
Although
Cal
if the
Ripken.
Lightning have one of these afternoon games, and they may have an afternoon game, then we won't
You're
have a
not
show.
gonna- Can't do a show. Can't do it.
And they could play. I mean, it's possible they could play this Sunday.
Yeah.
Depending on how the schedule plays out. But they will not play on Saturday. We will have a show on Saturday. It'll be 12 to 1. Same deal. You can listen live, watch live. You can follow on demand after the fact. But given it's the playoffs, we decided to expand to 7 days.
And on the 7th day, they had hockey.
Yes. Well, I think we're going to have hockey more than one every 7 days.
That's right.
But
For sure. All right, I'll talk to you tonight, and then
Talk
we'll
to
be
you
back at
tonight.
it tomorrow. Thanks, everybody who came on. Sam Rosen, we always appreciate him dropping by. What an outstanding man and career. We were so thankful for him to come on and talk hockey and his career with us at the beginning of the show. And thanks to Steve Ersnick and Jared Johnson for producing. We appreciate you guys. I'm Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.